This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Mothers know all about life's tricky transitions. Thankfully, Ollie helps you prioritize wellness through every age, life stage, or magnificent mood change. Need a multitasking multivitamin that keeps up with you? How about an essential prenatal for you and baby? Ollie's got you through it all. Life's tricky. Your wellness routine shouldn't be. Get what you need at ollie.com.
Feeling overwhelmed with the constant flow of headlines and trying to keep up with the latest twist of this election year? Take a deep breath and turn on Crooked Media's What a Day podcast. In just 20 short minutes, What a Day co-hosted by Trevor Anderson, Juanita Tolliver, Josie Duffy-Rice, and Priyanka Aribindi breaks down the biggest news stories into bite-sized pieces that don't make you want to cry. And the best part is, they do it every day. So start your day off right with What a Day, available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Hello and welcome to Immigrantly. I'm your host, Sadia Khan, and today we have an incredibly special guest who has a rare gift for bringing a whole world of characters to life, one performance at a time. Our guest is the brilliant and endlessly versatile Sarah Jones, who you know from her Tony Award-winning one-woman show, Bridge and Tunnel, and her latest project, the podcast, America, Who Hurt You?
The pod where we talk in many voices about politics, our trauma, and how we can heal them both. I'm your host, Sarah Jones, and I'm here with my
But what makes Sarah truly unique is her ability to become anyone. One moment, she is Lorraine.
Hello there, I'm Lorraine.
The opinionated, no-nonsense grandma who'll speak her mind whether you like it or not. The next, she's Bella.
I'm Bella. Hi, everyone.
The Gen Z influencer who's so over everything. And then you have Rashid.
Hi, yes, me Rashid.
And Noreda.
Hi, everybody. This is Nereda.
Through all these voices, Sarah doesn't just entertain, she forces us to see the humanity in people we might otherwise overlook. Today, I'll talk about how she creates these characters, what it's like to see the world through their eyes, and how embodying such a wide range of perspectives shapes her own view of identity and belonging, not just for herself, but for the broader society. I'm so thrilled to sit down with Sarah, virtually of course, to have this conversation. So let's jump right in. And we are rolling. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad we are doing this. And I found out you have kittens.
I do. I was going to tell you this morning literally involved herding cats. Not herding them as some presidential and vice presidential candidates would suggest a person who looks like me is going to do with pets. I was herding them this morning so that I could be here and have my Immigrantly debut. I'm so honored.
I want to talk about kittens. Okay, I have a kitten. His name is Sheru. He is 4 months old. And I'm obsessed.
It's an obsession.
Does that happen to you?
Oh my God. I can't function. I can't focus. I don't know how I have a job. If I could, I would just be a kind of kitten wrangling. That would be my full-time job. I have a new fur baby kitty named Mila. You know what I love? It's kind of immigrantly friendly because Mila, it's a popular name in Eastern European Slavic, Milushka.
Oh, Should we expect her to be one of your characters on America Who Hurt You?
She might be the America Who Hurt You podcat, which I love because podcat, all you have to do is remove the S from podcast, and it's a very natural fit.
It's a wonderful fit. Talking about your podcast, I've been binge listening to it. You have some big celebrities on the podcast, but I really love the conversations that you're having, Sarah, and the way you have these conversations. You have these distinct characters on your podcast, right? All of them. Is there a process of creating these characters?
I've had these characters for years. I come from a multicultural family. I'm a Black person with a multiracial upbringing and family experience and community from Queens, New York, like, kind of immigrant central. Like I've always felt like I'm like a stealth, I was born here, but except for that, I'm basically an immigrant. I've always just identified because, the characters come from, on my mom's side, Caribbean, Latine, Irish American, German American, Christians, Jews, all in one mom, like all in that one side of the family. And then my father's family, African American from the South in this country. And it was just the perfect mashup of people who have the shared experience of oppression, but also like boundless hope. Like you can't survive in a culture like this unless you have this almost like stubborn, dare I say, irrational, kind of hope that brings people together across race and across cultures. So for me, the characters are part of me. They always have been since I was a little girl. And I almost had to pick and choose who would come with me into my film Sell by Date and onto the podcast. And the same four came through because I kind of represent this Black American woman's perspective. I wanted a generational spread also, right? Because it's fun to have like my Gen Z character.
Do you think creating these characters, especially the Gen Z character, in some way leans into this stereotypes around Gen Z, the way they speak, the vernacular that they use? And I ask this because I have two Gen Z kids and my entire team at Immigrantly is mostly Gen Z, and they don't speak that way.
Yeah, so hi, I'm going to speak for myself. My name is Bella, and I consider myself like a cuspy person. Like I really don't like the binary of like, is it Gen Z? Is it millennial? It's giving this, it's giving that. Like, how do we talk? Like, I just feel like there is many ways to like be born after like 1995 as there are people. Like there's no one way. And I really like being kind of like a throwback. I think it's because like I had like women around me who like, I don't know, like Sarah Jones blames like Paris Hilton, and like I just feel that like I speak the way I speak. Like my joke with my mom is like, yeah, we have to be willing to like reach out not only across like cultural divides, but also across like the vocal ranges. And like, yeah, like if I have like upward intonation, like what is that bothering in you? Because it's not me.
Yeah, Bella, it's a question, right? Like she's always evolving. All the characters are always evolving. Her slang is just, AAVE. It's an African American vernacular English that is filtered through the queer community, or that the queer community invented, right? Slay and, the tea and all the things that this white girl, has adopted. Yeah, when she's like 10 toes down, yas, bitch. Like, it's like, well, actually, right? So I like exploring all of those intersections of why we communicate the ways we do and who's, connected how.
This is so interesting, Sarah. So what are you trying to convey through Bella then?
So getting back to like America Who Hurt You, right? That title, even that language, it's like, who hurt you, girl? It's an expression, right? But I wanted to really let it have the weight, the gravitas of this moment in this country, and the fact that our trauma is driving our politics and our politics are driving our trauma. Not necessarily in that order. I feel like it's really more the other. It's like you come here or you're born here, and it's one of the most disorienting experiences I can think of, to be told one thing about equality and freedom and justice and the American dream. And if you work hard, you can. And then you get here and you're like, what? Like, there are cages at the border. There's so much contradiction. And I guess for me, kind of really looking at all of that through the lens of these characters, right? So Bella is one voice. Having her perspective is very different than, the elder Bubby character who's also on the show and has her own trauma.
Hi, Sadia. My name is Lorraine, and I just wanted to say, Sarah, she's trying to look at the uncomfortable spaces, but that's where the healing is, between the races and the religions and the cultures. We can see where we end up when we aren't on the same page. I mean, I don't know what you're doing in November, but I'm basically going to put out a sleeping bag if I have to make sure I can vote.
Anyway, so that's the idea, to get all these voices into a conversation about healing, really healing ourselves and the country.
Sarah, you said somewhere in one of your interviews that trauma breaks us down, but facing our trauma puts us back together. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very personal statement for me. I probably heard it in therapy first. I don't know how to be in this American moment without acknowledging like I said, the kind of, whether it's, I've heard it on your show, conversations about, 2020 and, where are we now 4 years later? And, where have we been as a country that literally is founded on a genocide, right? Like, this country is founded on theft of land and horrible violence. And yet we sort of sanitize that away.
I mean, look, this country is facilitating a genocide as you and I speak, right? I feel like the burden of facing trauma really falls squarely on minorities.
Yeah. Part of me is like, there's a one-word answer to that. Emphatically. Well, it's two words. Emphatically, yes. I just had a conversation on my pod that will be released about white people, and how, in a similar way to the conversation about gender, right? And gender-based violence and, misogyny and all these things, that is a conversation for men to be having with women, like with non-binary people. If men are not at the core of that conversation, we're just, kind of entertaining each other and getting some cardio by like throwing up our hands, shaking our fists. So yes, if trauma and the healing of that trauma is falling squarely on the shoulders of the people of color who have experienced it most, we're failing. And so I think bringing white people, we've started to see these moments of accountability, acknowledgement, and then they go away, right? There's like 10 seconds of, okay, we're going to acknowledge, hundreds of years of incredible violence and dehumanization while we pretend that everyone's had an equal shot at the American dream. And then we're all going to panic and be like, no, we changed our minds. There's too many brown people in all the ads we're seeing, because that's all they did, right? They switched out the commercials, but no systemic change has actually really happened. And yet the conversation around DE&I and immigration and all of these things, critical race theory, you would think that white people are the oppressed group, that they are the endangered group, that they are the ones experiencing harm the most. And I'm not saying white people don't have problems. I'm saying their race isn't one of those problems in this country. Really broadly, globally, we can see white supremacy is kind of a global thing. Yeah.
How are you feeling about November?
Okay, this is going to feel like a mashup of Immigrantly and America Who Hurt You, because on the show, we are talking about that right now, right? This is the moment. I don't feel thrilled about some of the policies. If we're talking about the Middle East, if we're talking about right here at home, people are experiencing catastrophic poverty, health crises, racism, sexism, the abortion, we literally don't have the right to make our own choices about our bodies. In that reality, the choice is clear for me. I have ancestors who died for the right to vote in this country, and I'm going to vote. And I'm going to make the best decision that I can so that Project 2025, I don't want Margaret Atwood writing our actual current events headlines. That's where we are. We are fully past Handmaid's Tale. That said, when I hear people say, yes, but Sarah, it's already life and death for so many people, no matter who gets in November, I can't argue with that. It's true. I'm hoping that depending on what happens in November, we might still have a country that can then be held accountable.
I hear you, Sarah, but I'm so conflicted, right? Because for me, both Democrats or Republicans are not even an option for Muslims, at least in this country. But for Democrats, it's as if both parties have decided not to acknowledge not just our existence, but be active participants in facilitating extinction of Muslim identity across the globe. So for me, I get the agency and I get the importance. I really want to vote for Democrats. I really do. They are making it so hard for me to vote for them. I've had so many conversations with people and I haven't been able to make up my mind. Granted, I live in New York. I know the consequences of not voting or protest voting because I know it won't make that big a difference. If I were in Michigan, my thought process would be very different. But there are people in Michigan who are not going to vote. So, where do we go from here?
So I'm thinking of a friend of mine. I'm going to bring him out. He is one of my co-hosts on America Who Hurt You.
Yeah, what's good, Sadia? It's good to meet you. My name is Rashid.
Hi, Rashid.
Hi, it's a Muslim name, so I'm going to say that right there. Me and Sarah Jones, we've been debating about all this, you know what I mean? Because, first of all, I'm the only dude on her podcast, so I got my own perspective on things. Look, I'm going to put it to you like this. Only you can make that decision for yourself about your integrity. I see what's going on. I got a cousin that, he was protesting on his college campus named Malik. First of all, his name Malik. I'm like, you're already black. You already got a Muslim name. Now you're going to go get arrested when it's hard enough for black men to get in college. So I'm saying we know it's injustice. Sarah Jones is part Jewish, so she mad. She ain't confused, but she's hurting. She been hurting since October 7th, but she been hurting since she went to Israel and Palestine. And at that time, she couldn't even say Palestine without getting in trouble, you know what I mean? And she saw what she saw with her own eyes and then got in conflict with her own Jewish family. So it's painful. It's a painful time, not like it is for you. You know what I mean? This ain't no suffering Olympics or nothing like that. It's very clear to me. People got to vote their heart. They got to vote their conscience. And as a black male, I don't want to see what I know Project 2025 is going to do to my people. I don't want to see what it's going to do to y'all people. But I'm not going to tell y'all that you got to hold your nose and do something you can't stand. Whatever's going to be is going to be, inshallah, right? So for me, it's like, I respect you. And I'm not going to be one of them people that's like, yeah, but y'all need to do this. Y'all need to do that. I see what's going on over there. Y'all ain't got to do nothing but grieve and hold your head. You know what I mean?
Rashid, thank you for that perspective. I really, really appreciate that because at the end of the day, and you've talked about our shared humanity, right? Across religions, across ethnic, national identities, we are all the same. We are all human. We all have same aspirations, same fears, same joys, same cats and kittens. It's wonderful to sit in the company of people who see that shared humanity, right? Like you and like others. And you're right, it's a tough choice. And it's a choice between the future that we want to give to our kids. I have two beautiful girls. Imagine the importance of reproductive rights, right? And despite whatever I'm feeling, again, I'll go back to being a Muslim in America. Trump is probably the worst option for me as a Muslim, as a woman of color, as a Pakistani American immigrant. But it's a tough place to be in right now. The silver lining for me is this coalition building, right? I see people coming together. I see Muslim and Jewish communities coming together. I see youth coming together. I've lived in the US for 22 years, never seen the kind of activism on campuses that we're seeing now. Does Bella have any thoughts on youth activism?
First of all, I just want to say, like, I'm Jewish and I'm very clear about, like, I don't need to put like words and labels on like who believes what. Like, if we are dropping 2,000-pound bombs on like women and children, there's nothing complicated about that. That's just not complicated. It can't be. So I'm very clear. I am surrounded by other people like me of different religions, different races, but definitely a lot of Jews who understand this does not represent us. To me, Netanyahu is like Trump. So like Israel, like people are in the streets, like get rid of this guy. Yes. And there's also like, there's the reality of like the military, like the capitalism of all of this, like it can't be denied. And like you send us to school to like learn, and then we learn, and then you're mad that like we understand the assignment. Like that's not our fault. So I feel like people should protest. I've been learning about like the Vietnam War era, and like, you know, now we look back and we're like, yes, we should totally have like ended the Vietnam War. People got in so much trouble. We had Jane Fonda, like she's amazing. She's iconic. We had her on our podcast and she was like canceled or whatever they called it in the 70s for like protesting the Vietnam War.
If you think about activism out there in the world, it's almost like we need to be activists within.
I think it has to be both. I mean, because I could have done all the work on myself in the world, but if I wasn't an activist, I would be so depressed because of what's happening to the planet.
People called her a traitor. They like tried to ruin her life, like threatened her. So this is not new. Like we know that when you threaten power, power is going to threaten you back. And to me, it's not about my being Jewish or you being Muslim. This is about people in power wanting to maintain that power. And it's about, you know, stuff that's way above my pay grade, like, you know, like the stock of Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and like all of these, you know, like weapons companies is through the roof right now. Like the math is mathing. Like, let's be clear.
Sarah, why did you pick the theme of trauma and healing for your podcast?
You know, I'm thinking about what you said earlier, which is the trauma is, I mean, it's like all encompassing, right? We can't wake up to what some of us, and I'll be clear about this, on social media, some of us, because of the algorithm, are not seeing what's happening in Lebanon, are not seeing what's happening in Gaza or in the West Bank. We're not seeing it at all. And, you know, some folks, including people I love, all they're seeing is the very legitimate fear in Israel of what's happening, you know. So if we're not all seeing the same truth, we all have trauma, but then that trauma is being inflamed in these different ways that are showing us sometimes opposing realities and opposing truths. And it deepens the trauma further. So I thought, what if we could get honest? You know, Lorraine, if I ask her, we had a whole episode, you may have heard this already, but she was like, trauma. All you do is talk about trauma this and trauma that, and you're triggered. Please, you have a beautiful house and look at your nice clothes. What's the trauma? What are you in? You're not in a war zone yourself, you know. Stop trigger, you know. So she feels not as on the same page that she's been traumatized, but I can tell you, she came here as an immigrant herself. She's old enough that she remembers the thing that I think is still driving so much fear around anti-Semitism, which is very legitimate. Like, I don't want to take away the realities of anti-Semitism and the terror that is still alive in so many people's DNA. And to ignore the reality that the history of, 75 to 80 years before October 7th needs to be studied and understood. And we all need to be on the same page about the facts. And instead, we're re-traumatized by having people deny our truth. Everybody feels like their truth is being denied.
And both these truths can coexist, right? The truth of Palestinian oppression and the truth of anti-Semitism.
Very much so. I think Islamophobia more broadly and anti-Semitism, they're actually rooted in the same core white supremacy and, kind of colonialism and treating entire groups of people as pawns in a larger geopolitical game of who wants power. Jews were turned away from the United States, right? So let's be clear. I understand the complexities of this. I just think at a certain point, either it rained or it didn't rain. Either something is the truth or it's not the truth, right? You can say, oh, there were no Native Americans when the British came here, but that's a lie. We know the truth. And so it's not going to help us move forward as a country. We're never going to heal our trauma if we don't tell the truth about what happened to us and what some folks, I guess this is an important thing too about the podcast. I want people to feel hopeful. I want people to be able to look at what's scary, right? This idea that yes, trauma breaks us down. It does. It's painful. But the process of looking at it, which you could call grieving, sorry, it doesn't sound fun. But, when you let yourself have a good, hard cry after something hard happens to you and you talk about it with someone trusted, you can heal. You can actually, I love the idea of resilience that's so big that, what do they say? You can not only bounce back from trauma, you can bounce forward. I'm obsessed with that idea because I think it's our opportunity. And it's not just every 4 years. Our politics is all day, every day, year round. But we get this opportunity to tell the truth. We are fucked up. We are so fucked up as a country. We don't talk about how we, have just been basically traumatizing people with myths about who we all are and who we have to be, including men, by the way, including white men. They were taught that they're not allowed to have feelings or, be a human being. They have to be this stereotype. So oppression helps no one. But the people who think they're at the top of the hierarchy, they want to maintain that power, not realizing that illusion, that hierarchy, the racism, the sexism, the homophobia, all of it, the anti-immigrant, behavior, and all of that is harming them too. And if you don't believe it, you can look at their suicide rates, you can look at their rage issues, their loneliness. We just had an episode about this that aired yesterday. So to me, the healing is for everyone. When people of color heal, white people will finally be able to heal. And that's why white people need to get on board with doing their work to keep it from being only our job to heal this trauma.
And what's fascinating about your podcast is humor is a key part of your work, right? So you do bring humor in, although you talk about tough topics like racism and sexism and xenophobia, but you do bring in humor. How do you balance making people laugh while also making them think?
I think I learned from the people who impacted me. I'm of a generation that, SNL, when I was a kid, I watched these skits that sometimes, would take their shots at politics. And it helped me see the absurdity. It helped me not buy into the lies. It was like, oh, I can see through, this kind of messaging that they're spinning. And it grounded me in oh, I'm not crazy. And lots of us understand what really is going on. And it's yes, you laugh to keep from crying, but you also, I love the image that wherever there's an open laughing mouth, an open mind is right behind it. If you can laugh about something, you're undefended. And for me, part of the podcast personally is so challenging because every week I ask people to look at themselves. We talk about a topic and then I say something along the lines of, where have you dealt with racism or maybe perpetuated it against another person? one of the things I love about doing this podcast is I have to look at myself too and my privilege. We had an episode with Laverne Cox talking about trans rights. I'm a cis woman and I get to enjoy certain privileges that I didn't think about until she was like, hey, and then I get to look at where do I not speak up if I have a friend who like makes a remark and there's no trans people around. Am I saying, hey, that was transphobic. I love you, but you know, that's kind of fucked up. You can't like flag on the play, flag on the play. I mean, your podcast is a great example of reminding us that we're not alone. We're not bad or wrong. We make sense. Like if white people are racist, they make sense. This is a racist ass country. My house had a restrictive covenant on it when I bought it in 2021 that said no Black people could ever own it. And that's not just LA, it's all over the country. There are these restrictive covenants that keep people of color out since the 60s, whatever. So my point is, we make sense. The sexism makes sense. The racism makes sense. It all makes sense based on what we've been taught. Now we get to do the unlearning.
What have you unlearned through this process?
Sadia. One of the things, a lot of it is what I'm unlearning. It's really more of a process. My internalized ageism and my internalized looksism, if you will, or like, focus on externals and appearance. And it's all connected. We did an episode with Jamila Jamil about body image and so-called wellness culture that's really like, does my butt look fat though? Like, it's not really about self-care. It's really about the hierarchy of whose body has value. I have really had to look at my own stuff, my own body image obsession. I mean, I'm in Hollywood, so great job, Sarah. Great job picking, an industry that exacerbates it.
Sarah, I was listening to that podcast, and what an interesting and informative conversation. I get the idea of, being emancipated through a process of accepting ourselves unapologetically, whatever that acceptance is. But we don't have to shame people who want to look a certain way, who want to, I don't know, do Botox or fillers. Again, that is a choice, right? Shouldn't it boil down to having that choice as a woman? Shouldn't the focus be about what makes me happy than what makes the society happy when they look at me?
100%. And I mean, even just this exchange, right? You're reminding me I can have a very rigid, like I'm not being a good girl. If I was a really good girl, if I were a really good feminist, I will never have Botox. I will never. And listen, I'm looking at these forehead wrinkles. I'm like, I think I'm almost due. So it's very both and. It's very much about self-compassion. Of course, I want to Botox my lines in my forehead. How could I not, right? Not, oh my God, why would you want to be like that? We shame women for not looking a certain way. And then we shame them when they try to do the thing that I think more to your point though, how can we live in a society where the choice becomes ours? Half the time I'm living in reactivity, Sadia, and I don't even know it. I'm so conditioned by my history and my past that I don't even know who I am half the time to know, am I making this choice from a place of who I really am or from a place of conditioning? So I think that's the goal.
And you're right, it's very difficult to draw that distinction, right? Because we are designed to think a certain way. And that's what Jamila Jamil was saying, right? Because sometimes it's by design.
And it's lucrative. It makes a lot of money.
It is lucrative. And after listening to that conversation, I was having an inner dialogue with myself, right? Of what I want to do and what I am expected to do.
There's this idea of like, there's the self-image, especially in America. And I think it really kind of speaks to like the Immigrantly's topic and America Who Hurt You's topic. We are conditioned from like age 2, age 3, be this kind of little girl. This is what fits into the society. This is what your religion means. This is what your culture says you have to do. I was getting my hair straightened from, I don't know when. There's the keeping our skin light. There's all these things.
Look, I grew up in Pakistan. Keeping your skin light is one of the biggest obsessions.
Oh, from such a young age, we're conditioned as to what's good and what's bad about us. Unlearning that. That's a self-image
Who's the true self? The truth is, when somebody isn't driving us to spend all our money, and that's self-harm, right? If I'm spending every penny I have in a capitalist society that's already a mess to look a certain way because I'm worried that I don't have worth and value unless I look that way, that's the trauma. That's the trauma. Whereas if we want to put on a great lip, which your lip inspired I'm like, yes. Makeup is not that different than Botox. At a certain point, we deserve that autonomy in this context. Like, what do we want?
Feel your max with Brooks Running and the all-new Ghost Max 2. They're the shoes you deserve, designed to streamline your stride and help protect your body. Treat yourself to feel-good landings on an ultra-high stack of super comfy nitrogen-infused cushion that takes the edge off every step, every day. The Brooks Ghost Max 2. Technically, they're a form of self-care. Brooks, let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
Max Bankman, I'm the new doctor.
Welcome aboard the Odyssey.
ABC Thursdays.
This ship is heaven. We're tending to our passengers' dreams. I'm in.
From 911 executive producer Ryan Murphy comes a splashy new drama on a luxury cruise ship with Joshua Jackson and Don Johnson.
It's your job to keep everyone alive.
She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
Dr. Odyssey. Thursdays, 9/8 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
What is one thing that only Sarah can talk about on the podcast and not her characters?
I think they can all talk about their versions of maybe their trauma or their childhood, or in Lorraine's case, lack thereof. I had a wonderful family. We had a wonderful childhood. Anyway, only I can talk about how much my healing process is integral to my creativity. One does not exist without the other. I know that creativity was a refuge for me as a child, and many artists talk about that. And I can see how much having unconditional respect for myself and my journey, that is what yields the best art. Otherwise, I'm chasing a Tony Award or I want this thing or that thing. Compare and despair. It is like my worst go-to drug. I should have been this by now. Why haven't I done that by now? So that's the kind of stuff that only I can talk about. And I love that the podcast lets me have those conversations with other people who say, same, me too. And I'm like, wow, you've accomplished this. And you're Sadia, you have this beautiful podcast. What do you mean you have insecurities or self-doubt like anyone else? But gradually it's like, oh, we really are all in this together. So I feel like that's something I have to bring up.
What calms you down? What brings you happiness and joy?
Well, first of all, I'm an introverted extrovert, which I did not know until the pandemic. I also, sing it if you know it, I found out I have ADHD. Woo-hoo! No one is surprised. I'm the last one to know. Like everyone in my life is like, yeah, we tried to tell you this like a decade ago when you couldn't stop just making tangents from person to person, country to country, boyfriends. I'm like, oh yeah, totally. So realizing these things about myself, I've had to learn self-regulation, right? This world is so dysregulated. This country is like a dysfunctional, addicted, kind of being. So we're all living in that larger context. What can we do from simple things? I love simple things like breath techniques. There's something called the physiological sigh. It's really simple. People can look it up. You literally take 2 deep, sharp breaths in through your nose and then sigh out with sound. A big, long exhale that's longer than those breaths you took in. Your whole nervous system just goes, oh, okay. So learning about the vagus nerve, learning about the parasympathetic nervous system and how humming, all the things our grandmothers do, right? All the things that swaying and simple things, literally, if you find yourself putting your hand on your heart, that is your body's natural wisdom helping you regulate. And then co-regulation, a 20-second hug with a trusted, safe person.
releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. So I love all that neuroscience. And then I probably have a workaholism problem, so I don't do this enough. But going on holiday with friends, I'm divorced for a long time now. And if any of your listeners are single men who have done their work, they should get in touch with me, because partnership gives me so much joy. And I haven't had, like a real partner person for a couple of years now. I've learned to surf recently, like just being near the ocean, being, hugging a tree. It sounds so literally like a woke, liberal, whatever, but nature, like going back to what I'm made of gives me joy. So that's a tiny list.
I love that. Sarah, if your characters had a piece of advice for our listeners, what would they say? What would Rashid? Feeling overwhelmed with the constant flow of headlines and trying to keep up with the latest twist of this election year? Take a deep breath and turn on Crooked Media's What a Day podcast. In just 20 short minutes, What a Day, co-hosted by Trevor Anderson, Juanita Tolliver, Josie Duffy Rice, and Priyanka Aribindi, breaks down the biggest news stories into bite-sized pieces that don't make you want to cry. And the best part is, they do it every day. So start your day off right with What a Day, available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Say.
First of all, we've been talking a lot about masculinity, and some people call it toxic masculinity. We had a guest on Feminist Tabulous, that's her name on social media. She talks about broken masculinity instead of toxic masculinity. So I want to say to any of your listeners that's men, son, if you ain't cried in a minute, get you a sad movie, feel you some feelings. Feel your feelings. Dog, please feel it, because if you don't, you're going to road rage it, you're going to roid rage it, you in the gym, you whatever. I just want to say, we supposed to be humans. I found out boy babies is more sensitive than girl babies, apparently. And yet they don't get nurtured. People don't pick them up and hold them and all that. So hold yourself. I'm like, my dude, get in your emotions. That's my first suggestion. Get you a therapist. I know if it sounds cringe, whatever, watch some therapy on YouTube, so don't nobody got to know, but do that for yourself. Especially men of color, especially black males, immigrants, all of y'all, because y'all, they be coming for us. We need to feel that. Okay, so that's Rashid's advice.
Hi, I don't want to take up a lot of space, especially as a white woman, but I just want to say that, like, being embodied, if you can, and I know like a lot of people can't, like for years I couldn't meditate and I was like, what is that? And then it was like, oh, like I'm super uncomfortable, like in my own skin. And so actually like meditation did not work for me, but like dancing and like moving my body, like just feeling my feet on the ground and like just coming, like Sarah Jones calls it, like coming home to yourself. It sounds like whatever, but it really actually works.
So Bella is definitely, that idea of, where did I hear? The issues are in our tissues. I heard that somewhere, right? So if we're not in our bodies, we're probably a floating head up here, which lots of
interesting
immigrant folks, people of color, women, queer folks, we have to be. Like it's too dangerous to be in our body a lot of the time. So getting ourselves to the point where we can come home to ourselves is huge. I know what Nereida would say. Like you have to enjoy yourself. Like it can't just be work. Like you have to like have some fun, let your hair down, say the wrong thing, not in public. Don't tweet it. Don't don't put it on TikTok because you want to keep your job, but like just let yourself be free. Sarah Jones has so many rules. She like lives in like I'm just like, mama, do you ever relax? Like, do you ever let that go? Like, are you always just like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have, influence yourself, girl, like influence yourself. So I think people need to have a good time dancing. I highly recommend put on some reggaeton. If reggaeton is not your thing, like whatever. Fun, pure fun, not smart fun, not educational fun, just regular fun, regular fun. Okay, so So that's Narita. And then
I would say to your listeners, probably I'm the oldest one here. I don't know how old your listener base is, but I'm probably in the way up there. You're young. Enjoy your life while you're young. Enjoy your life when you're older. But it's so important. Sarah's doing a new project about care in this country. People are aging. We have disabled relatives. We have such important, you have kids. Some people are taking care of their kids and their parents, and they're getting older themselves. Be in your life now. Ask for what you need now. Look into something called the care economy, where we're trying to get this country to pay for what every other country pays for. Elder care and care for kids. Shadia, I hope I don't know how old your girls are, but you should have had all the paid family leave and time off that you need. And so we're trying to get more of that in the country, and it will help people enjoy their life. Enjoy while you're young. I hear 30-year-olds, oh my God, I'm 30, it's too late. Please, enjoy what you have while you have it, and that will help you appreciate what you have for as long as you're alive.
There's such good advice, and I totally get that. Like as you said, I think you said this in the beginning or somewhere during our conversation about ageism and thinking about we're getting old. And I think about that a lot, right? We are getting old. But you're right, living in the moment. We are the youngest we can ever be right now in this moment. In the end, Sarah, if you could define the United States of America in a word or a sentence, how would you do that?
Oh, I want 3 words so badly, or 2. Can I have 2? 3, can I have 3?
You can have 3 words. You can have a sentence if you want. Yeah.
Work in progress.
That's true. Absolutely. Sarah, this was so good. Where can people find your work, your podcast?
They can find America Who Hurt You wherever they get their podcasts. It's everywhere. And they can follow me on social media. I'm especially active on the gram. But all the social media platforms at Yes, I'm Sarah Jones. So it's YESIMSARAHJONES.
I love it. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I'm so glad that I was able to talk to not just Sarah, but Lorraine, Bella, Loretta, Rashid. I've been listening to these characters for the last few days as I was binge listening Sarah's podcast. And I feel like I know them. I connect with their thoughts. I appreciate their opinions. If you haven't listened to Sarah's podcast, do listen. It's called America Who Hurt You. Don't forget to give this episode a thumbs up. If you like our work at Immigrantly, any of our podcasts, subscribe to us. On Apple Podcasts, we have a whole channel with all 6 podcasts and more in development. Follow us on our socials. You can find us on Instagram at Immigrantly Media, on Twitter. I still refuse to call it X, at Immigrantly_pod. We are on TikTok at Immigrantly Podcast. We are on YouTube at Immigrantly Media. Find us, subscribe to us, give us a 5-star review. It really, really matters. These conversations matter. This space matters. Thank you for partaking in this journey with me. This episode was produced by me, Sadia Khan, written by me. Our editorial review is done by Shay Yu. Our editor and sound designer for this podcast episode is Lou Raskin. Our theme music is done by Simon Hutchinson. Other music by Epidemic Sound. Come back next week when I have another episode for all of you. Until then, take care and be kind to others.